In the late winter of 1970, the remote Norwegian fjords and craggy mountains held a quiet, almost impenetrable solitude. Far from the bustle of Oslo and other major cities, the rugged region near Isdalen was known to locals as both a haven of natural beauty and a place where secrets were whispered by the wind. In the small village of Isdal, near the border of the glacier-carved terrain, everyday life unfolded slowly and methodically. Villagers rose with the pale light of dawn, set about their daily work, tending to small farms, caring for livestock, and preparing hearty meals to ward off the biting cold. In these remote lands, the passage of time was measured by the changing hues of the sky, the shifting frost on the pines, and the steady rhythm of routine life. Among the villagers was a humble innkeeper named Erik Lund. His modest establishment, a well-worn building perched on the outskirts of the village, served as a resting point for local workers and occasional travelers who sought warmth and a hot meal. Every day at his inn, Erik would greet guests with a reserved smile, tend the crackling fire in the common room, and listen attentively to the murmurs of travelers recounting tales of distant lands. Life, though hard and marked by the relentless Norwegian winters, moved with simple predictability. It was during these ordinary days that a stranger, cloaked in mystery, arrived quietly in the region. For months, she had journeyed through Europe, a solitary traveler whose appearance was as enigmatic as her manner. Known only through fleeting whispers and foreign glances, she had spent time in several European cities, leaving behind no trace except the puzzles of her identity and the quiet elegance of her bearing. She was often seen in dim cafes and quiet corridors, watching life with eyes that revealed both melancholy and determination. In Oslo, in Paris, and on small trains clattering through the countryside, her presence went largely unnoticed by a world too preoccupied with its own tumult. Now, for reasons known only to her, she had arrived near Isdalen. The stranger was a woman whose features bore the subtle grace of a bygone era. Yet there was an unmistakable hardness in her gaze, a hidden strength forged in solitude. Her dark hair framed a face that was both beautiful and difficult to read. She carried a small leather bag and a travel journal, into which she scribbled her observations with an intensity that hinted at secrets too deep for casual conversation. As she took refuge in a modest room above Erik's inn, she became an almost spectral part of the landscape. Seen at twilight as she wandered alone along misty mountain trails, her footsteps measured and careful on the snowy ground. In the days that followed her arrival, the inn and the surrounding village buzzed quietly with speculation. Erik, who prided himself on his ability to sense the unspoken undercurrents of those who passed through, took a particular interest in the mysterious guest. She rarely spoke, and when she did, her words were sparse and measured, spoken in a low, almost musical voice that carried hints of foreign accents. Yet her presence was both alluring and unsettling. Over cups of steaming coffee in the common room, she would sometimes glance out the window, as if drawn to the vast, silent landscapes beyond, and in those moments her eyes betrayed a deep, unnameable sorrow. The locals, while cautious with strangers, found her intriguing and spoke in quiet tones about her. They speculated on her origins, creating stories that ranged from the mundane to the fantastic. Some said she might be a refugee of lost love. Others whispered that she was an agent of secrets from distant lands. Yet no one could say for sure, and even Eric himself found his curiosity tempered by a sense of foreboding he could not explain. As winter began to yield to the faint promise of spring, the daily routines at the inn and in the village continued, almost as if the land itself had not noticed the silent figure among them. Mornings were marked by the aroma of fresh bread and strong coffee, the clinking of utensils in the modest dining room, and the low murmur of conversation about weather and crops. Evenings brought quiet reflection. Guests retired to their rooms after dinner, and the inn's common room filled with gentle conversation against the crackling of the fireplace. The guest's presence became merely another thread in the fabric of everyday life, until one fateful day when that tapestry would be irrevocably torn. It was on a cool, overcast afternoon that the mysterious woman left the inn without fanfare. No one saw her depart. She simply vanished into the dense woodland that bordered the village. Eric, busy with his daily tasks, noticed only that her room had been left in disarray, a few items hastily packed, a travel journal missing several pages. Concerned, he asked around, but no guest had seen her leave. For a time, the disappearance seemed like a minor oddity, easily explained away as the unpredictable behavior of someone burdened with personal woes. Yet, as the hours passed and the sky darkened unexpectedly, a lingering feeling of disquiet began to spread among those who had come to notice her mysterious ways. That evening, as twilight descended over the rugged slopes of Isdal, the inn grew unusually quiet. A heavy fog began to roll in from the fjords, shrouding the landscape in ghostly white and softening the sharp outlines of trees. Eric, concerned by a deepening unease, ventured outside with a lantern to check on the surrounding area. In the silence of the encroaching mist, he noticed strange tracks in the damp earth, a series of footprints that seemed to lead toward the forest and then, inexplicably, vanish. They were too deliberate to have been left by a local animal, and yet there were no signs of another person either. Eric's heart pounded with a foreboding dread he had never felt before. He resolved to keep watch that night, though he could not quite articulate why. Inside the inn, a hush fell over the small common room as news of the footprints spread quietly among the few remaining guests. Whispers arose. Could it be connected to the mysterious woman? Had she ventured deep into the dark woods? A sense of cautious fear mingled with curiosity, though none dared to voice the possibility of something far more sinister lurking in the wild expanse. As night enveloped the village and the fog thickened, something changed in the quiet world of Isdal. In the later hours, when only the steady beat of distant owls and the slow rustle of pine needles filled the air, Eric's vigilant watch through the frosted window revealed a faint, shifting silhouette moving among the trees. The shape was indistinct, merging with the shadows and the swirling mist, yet it moved with an eerie deliberation. Eric's pulse quickened, and a chill shot through him, a premonition of that which could not be undone. Meanwhile, back inside the inn, the remaining guests retired to their rooms with uneasy eyes and heavy thoughts. In one small room, a guest, a man known in town only as Mr. Enriksson, stirred in his sleep, murmuring in a troubled tone about voices carried on the wind. In another, a young woman wrapped herself in a worn shawl and listened to the way the sounds of the night pressed softly against the wooden walls. No one knew that in that same night, a series of events was already unfolding in secret. a series of moments that would soon come together like shards of glass scattered on a cold floor. By the break of dawn, the first discoveries would set the region aflame with perplexity and dread. A group of hikers, following a well-worn trail near the forest's edge, found a small, charred campsite deep among the pines, a campsite that no one had known was used by any local. Among the embers lay a few personal items: a scarf with a faint perfume of exotic blossoms, a partly torn piece of paper with fragments of a foreign language, and traces of a hurried departure. The items stirred a memory in the minds of the experienced hikers, an inkling that something had transpired in the night that defied ordinary explanation. Back at the inn, as the first pale light broke over the horizon, Eric discovered that the guest's room was empty, and a sense of impending loss gripped him. He found in the sparse belongings a small diary with a few hastily written entries, the final page of which contained a single, cryptic line. "They watch through the silence." The words sent a shiver down his spine, though he could not piece together their meaning. As word spread quickly through the small community, local authorities began discreetly gathering details. Detectives, unaccustomed to the eerie mysteries that sometimes whispered on the edges of remote Norwegian life, arrived to interview the inn's occupants and search the surrounding area for further clues. They questioned Eric, who recounted every detail of the night with a tremor in his voice. Of the strange footprints, the indistinct figure amid the trees, and the cryptic diary entry left behind. Neighbors, too, were drawn into the inquiry. Some recalled that in the days preceding the mysterious disappearance, they had glimpsed a solitary woman on the outskirts of the village, her face partially hidden by a wide-brimmed hat. Others spoke of hushed rumors that travelers passing through had sometimes mentioned a shadowy figure known only as the Isdal woman, a name that evoked both beauty and melancholy in equal measure. Yet no one could say for certain where she had come from or what she sought. The investigation unfolded slowly, each detail delicately placed beside its counterpart in a mosaic that grew more perplexing with every passing hour. Detectives combed through the sparse evidence, the footprints frozen in time, the personal items left on the forest floor, and the whispered recollections of the inn's guests. Each clue hinted at a hidden life, one shrouded in secrecy, on the part of the mysterious woman who had vanished into the night. Over the following days, a quiet unease began to settle over the region. In the small village, where routine had once been the solace of everyday life, residents now cast wary glances at the dark horizon, as if expecting the return of something foreboding. Eric, whose intuition had always guided him, found himself haunted by the memory of that indistinct silhouette moving among the pines. At the inn, conversations turned from casual speculation to hushed confessions of long-held fears, of strangers who vanished without a trace, of secrets that lay hidden in the silence of the wilderness. One crisp morning, a local constable, accompanied by a couple of detectives, retraced the path the hikers had taken. In the deep frost of the forest, they discovered more remnants: a broken bracelet engraved with an unfamiliar symbol, a scrap of paper bearing a fragment of a foreign address, and faint traces of a lipstick shade that seemed to shimmer against the white snow. These small items, so easily dismissed in another time, now became part of an enduring puzzle, each one suggesting that the mysterious traveler had led a life filled with as many secrets as there were clues scattered among the trees. In whispered interview after whispered interview, the story of the Isdal woman began to take shape in the minds of investigators and locals alike. While no one could provide a definitive account of her origins, fragments of her existence emerged. She had traveled widely, leaving behind cryptic notes and ephemeral traces of her presence in distant cities. She had carried herself with an air of quiet dignity, yet there was an undercurrent of sadness in her eyes, and she had at times sought refuge in the remote corners of Norway, as if fleeing from a past too painful to bear. For those investigating the case, the mystery grew heavier with each new discovery. Detectives found themselves poring over travel records, cross-checking passenger lists and old hotel registers, hoping for a name or a clue that would unlock the secrets of this elusive woman. Meanwhile, the residents of the village, bound together by shared whispers and apprehension, began to mark the days by small signs. A faded photograph remembered from a transient glimpse, an entry in an old diary mentioning a strange visitor, and the persistent recollection of that cold night when the routine of life had been so jarringly upended. As spring began to melt the remaining traces of winter's frost from the rugged landscape, the tangible mystery of the Isdal woman continued to haunt every corner of the region. Local newspapers, once filled with routine announcements and community news, now carried somber headlines that described the haunting disappearance and the baffling clues left behind. Yet even as the story spread beyond the remote village, it remained shrouded in layers of ambiguity, a puzzle that refused to yield its secrets, leaving investigators and the public to wrestle with questions that seemed to echo into the endless Norwegian night. Among the documents gathered by the authorities was a collection of handwritten notes and diary entries, remnants of the Isdal woman's own account of her travels and inner reflections. The pages spoke of fleeting moments of beauty, of bitter loneliness in foreign lands, and of an ever-present shadow that seemed to pursue her. They were as enigmatic as they were heartbreaking, offering a glimpse into a life lived in perpetual motion, yet tethered to an unspoken sorrow that no distance could dispel. In the ensuing months, as the investigation delved ever deeper into the tangled web of evidence, the case of the Isdal woman transformed into both a mystery for the ages and a haunting legend woven into the fabric of local lore. Erik Lund, whose inn had unwittingly harbored the mysterious traveler, continued to live his life with a quiet resolve, though the memory of that winter night lingered like a shadow in his heart. Neighbors, too, found themselves recounting the events with a solemn reverence that bordered on the ritual, as if the memory of the disappearing stranger was both a warning and a lament for a lost soul. Detectives, following leads that spanned borders and time zones, slowly pieced together a tentative narrative. They learned that the Isdal woman had traveled extensively under different aliases, a chameleon who had sought reinvention in the anonymity of her journeys. Evidence suggested that she had come to Norway not by accident, but by design, a desire to hide, to start afresh, or perhaps to escape something that haunted her from a distant past. Yet even as the investigation pressed on, every detail they uncovered only deepened the labyrinth of secrecy that surrounded her. In the quiet, reflective moments that followed the most intense of investigative sessions, Those who worked on the case found themselves haunted by the subtle poetry of the Isdal woman's life. They marveled at how, in a world that was increasingly interconnected, a lone traveler could vanish so completely, leaving behind not only physical evidence, but also a series of intangible memories carried on the wind and whispered by the pines. The story of her life became a mirror reflecting the dual nature of existence, the interplay of ephemeral beauty and unrelenting sorrow, the transient touches of connection in a vast, indifferent world. The case, which had begun in the remote snowy hollows of a Norwegian winter, continued to cast its long shadow into the years that followed. Though no definitive answers emerged, the investigation forever altered the way the region looked at the mysterious corridors of identity, loss, and the resilience of memory. In hushed conversations in smoky back rooms and in the quiet reverence of late-night interviews, the legacy of the Isdal woman persisted, a reminder that even amid the harshest landscapes, the secrets of a single life could echo with a resonance far beyond its ephemeral days. In the final reckoning, the mystery of the Isdal woman did not end with the closure of investigations or the filing of official reports. It lived on in the collective consciousness of a community that had felt its quiet presence, and in the hearts of those who wondered about the convergence of fate and loneliness. Over time, the case became a symbol, a somber emblem of the hidden stories that lie beneath the surface of every routine day, of the lives that slip silently away in the shadowed margins of existence. Even now, when the midnight air over the fjords is cold and the pines murmur in the wind, the memory of the Isdal woman endures. Her footsteps in the snow, the cryptic lines of her diary, and the quiet determination in her eyes remain fragments of a mystery that no one has ever fully unraveled. She is remembered as both a traveler and a wanderer, a woman whose legacy is a haunting echo in a landscape as timeless as the secrets it keeps.